Hi, I'm Anderson, and I want to talk about my birth story with my little boy, Sebastian. I've had a YouTube channel prior with my wife, and she wasn't, she'll do it, but she's not super into it. So this is kind of going to be more me, and she'll be in it sometimes, and he'll be in it sometimes, and it'll be good. But I wanted to talk about his birth story, and I just want to remember it all. So I had an induction scheduled at 37 weeks due to having gestational hypertension and just the concern that it could be turned into preeclampsia. So we delivered, I had him, I want to say I was 37 weeks and 3 days, I think. But yeah, so we went in for induction. Well, actually, so my induction was scheduled August 3rd, which was a Wednesday. Tuesday, our plumbing decided to just wreak havoc. So we couldn't use anything. So Tuesday night, we stayed at my parents' house. Luckily, the morning of that Wednesday, a guy came out, snaked out our pipes. All is well. Great. And then we were just waiting. We went into the hospital for my induction at 8 p.m. And then they came in, I got registered, all the good stuff. 9 o'clock came and they checked me, and I was a centimeter and 50% effaced, which is what I was like a week before at my last appointment that I had. And I was getting NSTs twice a week for that week and then the week before. None of my NSTs did I have any contractions, even though I felt like maybe I was, but nothing that showed up. So they put me on, and I was having some mild contractions, so I thought, great, I'm not starting total ground zero. But yeah, when they checked me, I was the same as I was before. So they put the misoprostol in, which is this pill that goes up by the cervix that's supposed to help dilate you and just soften your cervix essentially. And then they want you to wait I want to say it's 4 hours, but it ended up being close to 5 hours just because nurses are busy. I'm not the only patient, and I'm totally aware, and honestly I didn't mind. So they came in and checked me again at 1:10 in the morning, and I was the same. Bummer, right? So basically it was okay, well, either we can wait a little longer, or we need to do a Foley bulb and some Pitocin. So what I did was I asked if we could wait. Oh, the other caveat with this whole situation was that since I was having frequent contractions, pretty consistently, and if my contractions did not slow down, then I would have been able to do another round of the misoprostol, but that was not the case. So we waited an hour, contractions were the same, so they started me on Pitocin, and then what was it? I'm trying to remember. They started me on Pitocin, and then they wanted me to get a Foley bulb, which I was not really a fan of the idea of that, because it goes through your cervix, and there's a balloon on each side of your cervix, basically. One in the uterus and one on the outside, and they are supposed to help dilate you. And since I have had an IUI, which is how I made him, I knew that stuff going through my cervix was very painful for me. So I wanted to avoid Foley bulb at all costs. But it was basically my only option. So I said, I will do that, but I would like to get my epidural first. It was both a mistake, but not a mistake at the same time to do that. Here's why. They went to do my epidural, and let's see, my epidural was placed at 4:30, 4:30. It did not go very smoothly for me. They ended up putting it in too far and gave me a spinal, which is what you would get for a C-section. I felt nothing. Dead weight. Like, had I been like, oh, just do a C-section, that probably would have been the smarter idea. But they said, you know, if you want, we can replace it and get it in the right spot. And then that way you'll be able to feel like something like pressure when it's time to push. So I was like, okay, because that was the plan, is to try to have a vaginal delivery. But turns out I have a little curve in my spine, which is why it made it harder to get it into the right place, which they did eventually. But it wasn't, I guess, curved enough for me to ever have been diagnosed with a scoliosis. So there's that. When they did the test dose, it was a full test dose with the spinal. So that's why I felt nothing. Then they replaced it and said they can't put me on they can't start the medication yet because I had the full test dose when they first put it in. And then they said eventually, once that kind of wears off, they'll start me at a 3. The highest level being a 12. So I waited probably too long because I was really feeling it. And I will say, my labor pain was all in my back, all back labor. I felt basically nothing. Well, most people would. Like, no uterine contractions, it felt like. It was all in my back. Anyways, so I got that. I probably let it wear off a little too much. And then they did the 3. And it was kind of okay. It was okay. And then I felt like I needed a higher dose. And I asked for a higher dose at about 9. They cranked it up to 12. I was feeling things like at 9. Like I could pinch like my leg, like my inner leg, like up on my thigh. And I was like, well, I probably shouldn't be able to feel that. So they had me turning, making sure it's getting everywhere it needs to be. And just, no. So it wasn't, the dose just wasn't going right for me, I guess. Because I could still, like, feel my labor pain. And it sucked, it all being in my back. It was awful. I had a bolus, which was just like an extra, like, jump of the medication that's in the epidural at 3:16 p.m. So much is going on during this day. My parents came and visited. My wife Rachel's parents came and visited, just chatting, whatever. I got a second bolus at 7:53. I don't remember where everything else kind of fit in, because like they're like, oh, you can like try to rest, take a nap when you get here. As soon as like I started getting back labor pretty instantly, so I had no sleep. So like waking up in the morning at my parents' house, no sleep. I had no idea what was going on, it felt like. But I remember at one point they came in and it was a resident who I had worked with in the past. So a little fun fact, I worked as a medical assistant with basically all like the attendings in this like OB group, which made me feel more comfortable with the situation. But so the resident came in. I was not having it. He came in and said, you know, we're not picking up his heart rate as good as we'd like to, so we'd like to break your water, and we'd like to do the internal fetal monitoring. And I knew what that was. And I know in some cases you need to do it, and that's fine. But for me, I was like, that's not something I'm interested in. I said, no thanks. I'm good. And he's like, well, why not? And I was just like, I just don't want to. And that's that. And he left. And thank goodness, because I was not having it. And then one of my favorite doctors, I mean, honestly, they're all my favorite. One of my docs came in and said, oh, here's what they did. I just need to be positioned differently to get his heart rate. Once I set up on like Princess Throne style, I was good and his heart rate was perfect. It was just positioning, honestly. But one of the docs came in and she said, you know, I think we really need to break your water and I have to go into the OR. So if you don't do it now, it's gonna be someone else. And I said, okay, let's do that. So she broke my water and it felt weird. I will say that, like, getting the epidural and like, so I got the epidural before I got the Foley bulb. I said that. I felt nothing with them putting it in, with the checks, because like that kind of stuff is just like kind of painful for me anyways and like uncomfortable. So it was helpful in that like situation. And then getting my water broken, fine. I know it was like a lot of fluid just running out. But it was all good. No worries. I want to say that was like earlier. I want to say it was after that first bolus I got. So between 4 and 5, I think maybe. I don't remember entirely. Second bolus, I think I said, yeah, I got it 7:53 p.m. And I want to say it was around 8, or no, maybe around 9 o'clock. It was me, Rachel, and then my mom and her mom, and we were all just chatting. I was chatting as much as I could with how I felt. I felt very out of body. Like I was there, but I wasn't there. And I remember them coming in to check me. If I remember correctly, earlier, somewhere in there, I had gotten to like 4-ish centimeters, I think. And then, yeah, so that was like earlier. But they came in to check me. He was having D cells. I thought I'd be like a 7. I knew I was having some pain, but I didn't think anything of it because it was all on my back, you know, like I wasn't thinking much. I was just kind of rolling with it because I knew I'm feeling things and it's gonna hurt, whatever. I'm barely there. Like, I'm barely there. But I remember they come in, they check me. He decelled twice. I was 10 centimeters, fully effaced. Like, everybody was like, whoa. 10 centimeters, fully effaced, ready to go. But he's decelling. They have to stop my Pitocin. Oh, they had me get on my hands and knees and like flip, and they were like surprised that I could do that so quickly. But they had to drop my Pitocin, which meant that my contractions slowed. And they wanted me to push, but there were like no contractions anymore because you're supposed to push with your contractions, right? So it's coming time, and I think it's a lot of adrenaline at this point. And this whole story probably is so incoherent, but that's literally how my mind was. I was there, but I was not. I want to say I pushed for like 4-ish hours, I think they said. So I think I started pushing, let me think, I guess around 8:30. So all of that happened really quick after my second bolus. Yeah, which still was like wearing off because I felt him come out. I was very scared, and I think adrenaline really kicked in, but I did it. I remember, and this is also because, you know, Rachel told me, but I remember saying, I don't think I can do it, and apparently his head was out already, like, so I guess I didn't think I could get his body out. But like when it was time to start pushing, we did the like just regular trying to push, I guess I couldn't, my brain couldn't do it. My face was doing it, my body was not doing it. It was just me going, and that's it. So then we did tug of war. So she gave me a sheet. My nurse, best nurse ever, gave me one end of the sheet, and she took the other, and we just played tug of war. And every time I had to push, I pulled. And that really helped. And then it got to the point where I was pulling too hard. So then they put a bar up, and she tied it to the bar. And I was just pulling that sheet from that bar. And that's how I was when I had to get him out. But then my other doc, who came in, and it was like go time, and I did not think I could do it at all, but I did. The body is amazing, I'll tell you that. And then he was here. He was born at 12:32 in the morning on Friday the 5th. Tiny little guy, thank goodness for me. He was 6 pounds and 7 ounces. 19 and a quarter inches. I remember finally, like, when my parents came in and they were doing like his weight and everything, like that was really cool. It almost felt like I was in the same room, but it felt like I was in a different room after that. I don't know why, because I know it was the same room, but it felt different. But he was here, and that was the important part. We did all the hard work. And then, I don't know, he had some issues with being jaundiced. I wanted to breastfeed, but he didn't latch very well. Which, I mean, even like up to this point, like I've tried a couple times to try to see if he would latch, and it's like, at this point, he's got that bottle on lock. So, I mean, it is what it is. But he wasn't getting enough to eat, so he wasn't like, you gotta eat and you gotta drink to poop. Point blank. And poop gets out your bilirubin. So his bilirubin went up and he was jaundiced. So we had to stay, I think we left on, let's see, okay, it was born the 5th. We left on the 8th, so we were there for a little while, because it was like, okay, a day or so was for me. And then luckily they didn't need our room yet, so we were able to stay in our room, and he stayed under the lights for, I want to say 14 or so hours, like maybe 16 altogether. And finally his levels went down. I was really worried that like I was gonna have to leave him, which I definitely was not going to, but I didn't want to, like, I don't know, you don't want to leave your baby. That's your baby. And I had issues with that too, where I did not want to send him to the nursery, which, looking back, they take wonderful care of the babies in there. And I knew that, but I'm like, I pushed you out. I gotta keep you with me. I don't know. Oh, am I talking about you? But like, I had a really hard time doing that, and I know it was okay, but literally I was just so emotional that like I finally was like, okay, I know we need to. So I sent him, but I cried majority of the time that he was gone. It was late at night, so Rachel was asleep, and I just cried. And then one of the texts came in because she was gonna get my blood pressure, but like I just turned over and acted like I was asleep. So she wouldn't come in because I had just been crying. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it, you know. Finally, when we did have to give our room out, we sat in the nursery with him, and it was like, wow, they're obviously taking wonderful care of these babies. But my mind said, no, you keep him with you, because that's what you're supposed to do. Just so you all know, it's totally okay. You may feel like I did and feel like they have to stay with you, which I think is valid. But also, it's valid for them to be in the nursery. It's also valid for them to have formula. All these things I knew in my mind. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. got my hair. Okay. Shh. Do you want this? I knew going in I didn't care if I needed to do formula and supplement, but the fact that I couldn't breastfeed made me sad. Once again, valid, but also valid to have formula because I know it's what he needed. I did get to pump for a little while. That was really hard for me, but I did pump, and he did get to have some of my golden liquid breast milk. Like, he got some of it, which makes me happy that I could at least do a little bit. But yeah, so we went home on August 8th, and it was a little rough, but you know, we are 5 months in, and we're rocking it. We're doing the best we can every day. But I think in another video, I will talk about kind of like my postpartum like experience, because I'm gonna tell you now, it's not easy. It's still not easy, but like, you get through it. You have to do what's best for you, and that's all I gotta say. But he's here, and he's 5 months old, and we're all good. Yep. All right, well, I will talk to all of you, mostly just me right now. I'll talk to all y'all later. All right, bye.